We are now. So I want to say good afternoon. Thank you for attending. This is the first of two scheduled series of public webinars regarding the Montana 1% initial waiver request to the Department of Education pertaining to the multi-state alternate assessment that Montana does allow for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. Today, I'll introduce myself as JP Williams, the State Director of Special Education for OPI. We also have John Gorton, who is our Monitoring and Compliance Manager. We also do have, at this time, Ms. Teresa Baldry from the Montana Deaf and Blind Project, who is also a member of our State Special Education Advisory Panel. We are waiting for public members to attend, but we will go ahead and review some pertinent information that I want to make sure is noted in the public comment opportunity here for the time that we have. And can you guys see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, let's go try that piece again. So you should be able to see now a PowerPoint.
Yep.
That is revolving the Montana 1% waiver request. We've actually created a folder on the special education website. All of these documents that you'll see will be available publicly on that website prior to the end of the public comment period, which is December 7th. So again, welcome. My name is JP Williams. I am the State Director for Special Education here in the state of Montana. We also have John Gorton from Compliance and Monitoring, who is over our monitoring team. And again, welcome Ms. Teresa Baldry from the Montana Deaf and Blind Rural Institute, as well as one of our Special Education Advisory Panel members. I believe there are some other folks trying to get into the meeting. We'll resume the recording here. And as any other folks come in, we'll enter them into the meeting. Marcy Fortner is with the OPI assessment team, so well represented by OPI tonight. Thank you for being here. And I will go back to screen share. Hello, good evening, Marcy.
Hi, JP. How are you doing?
Doing well. We have John Gorton from Compliance and Monitoring.
Hi, John.
As well as Teresa Baldry, who's with the Montana Deaf and Blind Project, the Rural Institute, but Teresa is also a member of our advisory panel.
Oh, excellent. Hi, Teresa.
So, and then it looks like Diva from our Special Education Advisory Panel is going to join as well. And I will continue to, hello, good evening, Diva. I will continue to enter folks into this meeting as they show. Good evening, Diva. You're here with JP, John Gorton, Marcy Fortner from OPI, Teresa from our Special Education Advisory Panel. Thank you for being here. You're right on time. We're just going to go over the 1% waiver request from Montana. And this presentation is with JP and John Gorton. Thank you so much for being here. Our meeting agenda includes an explanation of federal regulations and requirements for the OSEP September 22 memo, a discussion of actions taken by OPI since that memo, with future actions, preliminary data results regarding the alternate assessment here in Montana. We will have a discussion of preliminary data, a description of that data and the collection processes, as well as monitoring compliance updates with a review of assessment, determination, justification forms, information on the multi-state alternate assessment, as well as the LEA decision flow chart, and then opportunity for public comment and question. The meeting links were posted on November 7th. They are posted as well on the OPI Special Education website. We also did do a notification in the local newspaper, as well as on Facebook and all social media platforms. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with the 1% waiver, the idea requires that the IEP teams need to decide if students must take alternate testing and alternate assessments, or if they need to take a particular regular state or district-wide assessment of student achievement. This determination, of course, must include a statement in the student's IEP of why that student cannot participate in a regular assessment. The determination also must state why the particular alternate assessment was selected and is appropriate for the student. This is according to the CFR code 34300.320A6, section 2. Also, an approved waiver from the Department of Education allows the state participation rate in the alternate assessment to be above the 1% cap. However, states applying for the waiver will have an action plan developed for addressing 1% participation rates across the state. The Office of Special Education Policy recognizes that children with the most significant cognitive disabilities are among those disproportionately affected by school closures and other disruptions in instruction over the last few years with the COVID pandemic. This is also in the OSEP memo. OPI did develop a timeline beginning September 20th with receipt of the OSEP memo regarding 1%. There was a senior management review of the Department of Education memo on October 4th. October 20th, the OPI Special Education staff and director met with lead IACOR Austin to discuss Montana State Action Plan and for requesting initial waiver. October 31st, the Department of Education Montana lead Clayton Hollandhead did meet with OPI staff and State Director J.P. Williams to discuss federal requirements and expectations for requesting the 1% waiver. Specifically discussed were 34 CFR 200.6 C4, as well as the additional steps that the state will need to take to support appropriate oversight with each LEA that anticipates it will assess more than 1%. And the state will also address any disproportionality. So those items were discussed with the federal lead, Clayton Hollandhead, on October 31st. Continuing, November 7th, the executive team held a meeting with State Superintendent Elsie Arnson, Chief Operating Officer Julie Mergel, Director of Communications Brian O'Leary, Director of Special Education J.P. Williams, and the discussion pursued of the Department of Education requirements. We also reviewed the public comment timeline, and that was approved. Sent public comment notices via the OPI website, local media, mass email to stakeholders. November 9th, a 1% waiver discussion was held in the statewide special education directors meeting, which you had referred to earlier, Ms. Baldry. And JP Williams reviewed the critical OPI actions and planning, as well as dispersing the public comment notices, the draft waiver for 1%, and the draft justification document. Also, the Montana multi-state alternate assessment criteria rubric for deciding when a student is eligible for alternate testing was dispersed amongst all state directors as well on November 9th. We received some feedback and held a Q&A period for special education director input on November 9th, November 15th. A information session with the statewide education advocates made up of various stakeholders was held, which provided another opportunity for questions and answers as well as feedback. November 15th, public notice was published as well in the Helena Independent Education newspaper. And November 17th, we are having our first of two public seminars scheduled for November 17th and November 22nd for public comment for the specific purpose of receiving public comment and providing information on the 1%. And November 21st, we'll have another discussion with the Special Education Advisory Panel regarding the 1% waiver. December 7th, public comment deadline will close at 4 p.m. December 13th, on or before that date, the Montana OPI will submit the initial waiver request and packet to the Department of Education electronically. And follow-up period will begin January 5th, and that'll be ongoing for summarizing any further public comment received or any additional actions that OPI has taken or directed to take by OSEP at that time. I do want to talk about the data and the waiver for our rationale. Montana has not had to apply for a 1% waiver request at any time in the future. Based upon preliminary testing data from 2021 to 2022, which includes the math, multi-state alternate assessment participation rates, as well as the ELA, English Language Arts, multi-state alternate assessment participation rates, and the science multi-state alternate participation rates, it was determined by the OPI special education team that the state would need to apply for a 1% waiver. Those numbers for math participation rate were 1.08. The number for English Language Arts was 1.07, and science was 0.88. So Montana will only be requesting a waiver for math participation rates as well as English Language Arts participation rates. This data is gathered by OPI from GEMS data, also child count, and additional data from State's Infinite Campus AIM system. Collected data is then used for reporting purposes and requirements. Montana will seek an initial 1% waiver request for math and ELA for the 2022-23 spring multi-state assessment, alternate assessment testing cycle. Now, getting into state and federal guidelines, I'd like to turn this portion over to Mr. John Gorton from Monitoring and Compliance to review those federal and state requirements, as well as how determination should be based. Mr. Gorton, the floor is yours.
Hello, friends. Yeah, I just wanted to provide this information for the group. I won't bother reading this for you in its entirety, but basically says that the MCA Montana Code annotated, that first bullet, talks again about trying to level the playing field, making equal opportunities for all students regardless of abilities. And then the CFR reference, the second bullet, is talking about the need that the requirement that all students, regardless of abilities, have the opportunity to take the state assessment. And so they are required, it is mandated, and so we just need to be able to use that as the reinforcer for the rationale behind the administration of the test for all students, and that's why we're here today. Next slide, please. So what I did here was just kind of give you providing a quick little outline as far as determination qualifiers should not look like any of these 14 areas. A specific label or disability, attendance, and so on. I won't bother reading all that. I know you guys are all capable of doing that for you, but for the most part, it's I want to again try to, my intention here is to try to just hone in on the exact intent and purpose of the Montana or the multi-state assessment, and that these would rule out students who might otherwise be mislabeled and utilized in taking the actual assessment. Next slide. So when a student or when an IEP team gets together and they develop the student's IEP, let's assume then that the conversation turns to indeed the student does need to take the MSAA. This is the window that pops up in the development of the IEP on the Infinite Campus site. So you have pop-up or drop-down windows under assessment, assessment manner, and content area. And you would select the multi-state alternate assessment. The assessment manner would be with accommodations, without accommodations, or alternate. And so you obviously take the alternate, as that's why we are having that discussion at the time. And then the content area would be either math or ELA only options. And so then you have, for a student to be determined eligible for the Montana or the multi-state alternate assessment, you have these 4 check boxes. You have to affirm that these are indeed the areas of need for the student and to legitimize the decision to proceed with the alternate assessment. Failure to check one of those would indicate that the student would automatically go towards the standard assessment rather than the alternate assessment. Next slide. Or is that? I guess that's, oh, and so here I've just provided a link for everybody to, if you would like to see the statewide participation flowchart. And it's basically the same 4 questions, maybe just worded a little bit differently. But the 4 questions that pop up on the IEP in Infinite Campus. And then you have the information on MSAA site. That link is there, and it provides that is a state directed site. And I just want to bring attention to page 16 specifically, because test administrators, which would be our life skills teachers who might be administering this test for the most part, they are responsible for completing a series of modules and to pass the test with 80% accuracy before they're able to administer or oversee the administration of the assessment of the alternative assessment for students. And so that is something that needs to be done typically in the field. That those reviews or the modules are typically done like the week before the actual testing window opens up. But we are going to be trying to encourage schools best practice to get that assessment, those modules completed sooner than later. The total time is approximately about 2 hours in length to get through all the modules. So if they can get that in during the months of the next couple of months, December, January, that would be far better than waiting until a week before. And I think that is all that I have, JP.
John, would you just continue to talk about the note on public comment, and I'll be right back.
Okay, sure. I don't have access to scroll. But is this the last slide? Okay. Yeah. So here we have, if anybody has we are unable to speak directly to any questions that the audience might have today, but we are certainly willing and able to review any questions that are submitted to us. And so to do so, we ask that you submit those through either through the OPI MSAA waiver or at mt.gov site. We have created that address for this very reason. Or if you want to believe in snail mail, you can certainly send it through that way directly to JP. and then we will review those comments, concerns at that as those come in. So if you have any comments like that that you would like to bring to our attention, we welcome them and appreciate any feedback that you might provide. The final slide, and I'm not, as I said, I don't think I can roll through it, but the final slide on this is basically there are links that are available to the audience to be able to look at. Thank you, JP. To be able to review what other things that associated with the multi-state assessment that you might be able to look at if you need to at your leisure. But this is kind of what drives, what steers what we are doing with regards to the assessment. So with that, I think we are done. And again, unfortunately, I'm not able to really respond to any questions that you have at this time. Just more of an informative role in this process.
John, if it's okay, I'm just going to make a quick, I guess, maybe a reminder. A couple slides ago, you were talking about the training for the test administrators. Yep. So completely agreed to get that done early because it is pretty time consuming. However, the MSAA portal, the actual assessment management portal, it doesn't open until February. So test administrators won't be able to start those. Yeah, the consortia has voted to have that open about a month before the test window opens. So while I definitely agree with getting that done early, they can't go in too early because that's where they access those trainings. So
good to know. Thank you.
You bet.
JP and I will stay on for.
My apologies. Sorry about that, guys. This is appropriate time for public comment. And Marcy, thank you for your comments. I saw your corrections as well. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time this evening. I would say for any comments that you'd really like to have as part of our summary, to please use that email address. And I'll put that in the chat just so everybody has that and that it's on record. The email address that is being monitored is OPI MSAA waiver at mt.gov. And so what we will do is from all the public comment that's received at that email or throughout these meetings, that all that information will be summarized to go along with our 1% waiver packet submission. So I know that Mr. Gorton and myself are relegated to be here till 5 p.m. and I wouldn't expect anybody else to be here, but I do appreciate your time. And if you do have comments that you'd like to submit for summary with our submission, please send to that email. Thank you so much, Marcy, and thank you, Diva, as well as Teresa for being here. And you're certainly welcome to hang on for the next 25 minutes and make public comments as needed.